Here are the Hercules XPS 2.0 60 DjSet amplified speakers, or one of them at least, the one with the built-in amplifier. And here is what you have to do to get that apart. The rear circuit board obviously unscrews from the back, but the front circuit board sits in a black box, and you can't pull that out towards the back. It does slot in from the front, as you can see. So the decorative plastic front needs to come off. In order to do that, you take off the 3 knobs and the 3 nuts holding these potentiometers in place. Then you take out the 7, not 6, don't forget the center one, the 7 screws holding the decorative plastic front in place. And then you need a lot of force. The problem is that they wrapped the bass reflex ports into this tape to seal them, and that is wedged into these holes, and it does take quite a lot of force to pull that all apart. But once you've done that, you have access to the circuit board in the front. And the way this works is quite clever. So we have this connector, and yes, they do give you enough slack to pull the board out to work on it. This one is ground. These 2 connections are the input signal coming from the inputs in the back. The next 2 are the signal that returns to the main amplifier on the rear board. Then there is a permanent 9-volt supply for the front circuit board. And then there is a switching signal. This is quite clever. The headphone amplifier is part of the front circuit board. And if you plug in some headphones, the switching line goes low, and that turns off the main amplifier. So when you have headphones plugged in, there is not a single sound coming from the main speakers. And this is also just 9 volts. When the amplifier in the back is supposed to be on, there is 9 volts. When you have some headphones plugged in, the 9 volts are absent and the main amplifier is turned off. Now, in case you wonder, the problem that I am having with these speakers is as follows. I got these off the local classifieds some time ago. The previous owners claimed that the left channel was dead. So I brought home these speakers and tested them and found that the left channel was perfectly fine. Until a few days ago, when it cut out and never returned. So I took this all apart, and first it seemed like there was a bad solder joint. As I was twisting and flexing this board, the signal would eventually start cutting in again. But some further experimentation narrowed it down to the volume control. And this is quite strange, because this is not your typical sort of scratchy potentiometer type bad contact. When the contact is bad, it's quite persistent, much more like you would have with a bad solder joint. And if you twist the volume potentiometer around the right way, it will return. So to fix it, so far I have flooded it with contact cleaner, and it did need some time to soak in, but eventually both channels returned. As you may or may not be able to hear. Of course, now there is a bit of a dilemma. I did some more twisting and bending around of the volume control, and I was able to get the left channel to cut out again for a bit. So Ideally, and I'm sure this is what all the keyboard experts will tell me, I need to get this volume control out of here, take it all apart, and inspect the inside of it and clean it properly. But that is quite a risk. This is a rather small potentiometer. I know it doesn't really come across on video, and it does have a very, very short shaft. So the risk is, if I screw this up trying to take it apart, it'll be very, very difficult to find a suitable replacement. So the alternative would be to flood it with contact cleaner yet again and just hope for the best. But with these speakers being so difficult to take apart, that may not be the best solution, because if the problem returns, I will be annoyed. So I'll have to keep thinking about this. Well, the decision has been made. There is the volume potentiometer all taken apart, at least as far as I dare taking it apart. As you can see, it seems like they kind of hammered down onto the metal axis there to hold the plastic piece in place. I don't see any way of getting that off, so unfortunately I can't get to the front contacts, the front wipers, but there is a cutout in the plastic, so I was able to wipe the carbon track with contact cleaner. I wiped this rear piece, and I wasn't able to find any obvious damage, so that's all I can do. And there it is, back together and still working fine. I have the other channel connected to one of the test speakers on the bench, so we are hearing this in stereo. Now, I will have to say, it is a bit unfortunate that this was not more of a decisive fault, something like a bad solder joint, because a potentiometer can always go bad again. And I certainly hope that this system will now continue to provide reliable service and not turn into a never-ending story, because this is just too difficult to take apart. In the factory, they must have assembled the front first and then assembled the box around the back. That's the only way I can imagine this work in a mass production. In the first segment, I forgot to mention that I have checked for bad solder joints before I even turned my attention to the potentiometers. In fact, I have redone most of the solder joints on both the front and back circuit boards. The original soldering was not too bad, but I thought it's better just to be safe. So, I hope this video was helpful for someone. Thank you for watching.